Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review, and to finish off the original Star Trek movie series, I'm going to be discussing Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. And of course, it's the final, and this is literally the final film of the original Star Trek cast on the television series in it. And it's really, well, you can tell that was going to be the end because there's a lot of references. There's going to be the last voyage because the Star Trek crew was going to be retiring. And for the last mission of the original crew, they're going to start to negotiate a peace treaty with the Klingons. And of course, ever since the start of the series, they were the enemy of the Federation. And that's because the reason why they decided to do it is because one of the Klingon moon exploded because they had like an accident and destroyed the whole atmosphere of the Klingon home planet. And they have about 50 years of life left to the planet. They don't find somewhere else to live. And so they decided to negotiate with the Federation for a peace treaty. And they decided to pick Captain Kirk and his crew, or Spock did. So let's have Captain Kirk go do it. And of course, comes with the saying, only Nixon can go to China. In reference to, of course, President Nixon when he went to China. Back in I think it was just before Watergate. And that's what they decided to do. And the main villain in this movie was Christopher Plummer from The Sound of Music, or the movie version of The Sound of Music, playing the villain. And of course they had references to what happened in Star Trek 3 when Kirk's son was killed by the Klingons, because Kirk made a log entry saying they never trusted Klingons and never will, and they have never been able to forgive himself because they killed my son. And that log entry was going to be used against Kirk later on, because they met the Chancellor of the Klingon High Council, played by David Warner, who of course 6 years later played Cal's henchman or bodyguard in the movie Titanic, which I did a previous video on. And of course on the way there they were escorting them back to Federation space, and after they had dinner, the Klingon High Chancellor was on his own ship and he was assassinated, and apparently by two Starfleet officers. And of course the Kirk and McCoy, because they went over to the Klingon ship, and they beamed over to the Klingon ship to find out what happened and to give service, and they think they did it because they had no indication there was another ship there, which of course we find out from the movie that was. And the two of them, Kirk and McCoy, went on trial, and defending them in this trial was Michael Dorn, who played Worf in the Star Trek Next Generation series. He plays his grandfather in this one. And you have so you have kind of like a little bit of connection between the original series and the Next Generation show. And then they had this whole thing when they went to this ice prison planet, which was actually, part of it was actually filmed on a glacier in Alaska. And you can see what a beautiful state Alaska is by seeing them on this glacier. When they go to the prison, and when they, of course, spoiler, they escape from the prison. And you have Mal Iman, who I think was married to David Bowie, plays a changeling, a chameleon, who helps them escape from this prison. And of course they figure out there was a conspiracy going on between some Federation officers and some of the Klingons, trying to prevent the the press conference to continue. Of course, in this movie, you also had the promotion of Mr. Sulu. He got promoted as captain, and he got his own ship, and he of course got the ship that he wanted to be on. That's the Excelsior. So he's on the Excelsior, and he helps Kirk McCoy out. And also, you look for a cameo for Christian Slater. And of course, the henchman, or the head villain who was also behind the conspiracy, was Kim Cattrall, who plays a new character called Lieutenant Valaris. Because originally, in Star Trek VI, the original plot was that Lieutenant Saavik was supposed to be turned traitor. But since Lieutenant Saavik was a popular character, and for some reason the writers and producers of the Star Trek movies didn't bring her back. They have, for one scene in Star Trek 4, like I mentioned in my Star Trek 4 review, but then that's it. You never saw the character again in anything else, in any other movie, or in the television, in the Next Generation show, or anything, or Deep Space Nine, or anything else. So they decided to create this new character, and originally Kim Cattrall was supposed to play Lieutenant Saavik way back in Star Trek 9 years earlier in Star Trek 2. But she was not available. For some reason she was not available. She was working on a movie, she was doing another project or a television series, but whatever she was doing, she was not available to do Star Trek 2, 3, or 4. When Star Trek 6 came around, she was available. I said, hey, I'm available, guys. You can do whatever you want me to do. And whatever point you want me to play, I'll do it. So they created, and they were supposed to bring Saavik and have Kim Cattrall play Lieutenant Saavik. But she didn't do it. She played this brand new character. We're going to play this new character for you, and you can play that. So she said, alright, so it turned out to be a villain or part of this conspiracy. Another person that was in the conspiracy was Brock Peters, who was playing Admiral Cartwright, his character was established in Star Trek 4, and of course in the Deep Space Nine series, the television series, he played Captain Sisko's father in the Deep Space Nine show. Now, of course, if you're a real big movie buff, he played the defendant, or the accused, in the film version of To Kill a Mockingbird. And that's how long of a career this guy had, and I understand that he died a couple of years ago. But back to the movie. That's because the end of the movie ends with this big battle scene at the end of the film, and of course, Christopher Plummer, who played Shakespeare in plays throughout, particularly in his early part of his career. So throughout the movie, he was quoting Shakespeare through the whole movie, like to be or not to be, in his dinner scene, and of course during the big battle scene with the Enterprise, he quotes, "Let's lift the dogs of war," and Carson is a northern store. Of course, McCoy says they give real money if you just shut up. Because he was getting annoying quoting Shakespeare at that point. But of course, we all know who wins. The Enterprise crew wins at the end, and they convince everybody what had happened, and they explain what happened. And of course, it has one of the better quotes in Star Trek, not just what Christopher Plummer says or anything else, but there was a scene where Spock was trying to, and the Enterprise crew trying to figure out what had happened. And they're trying to figure out maybe there was another ship, because they did detect a radiation surge just before the Klingon ship Cronus 1 was attacked. And of course Spock says, if you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. And I think there was a line from Sherlock Holmes, I believe. And so he was quoted in that. It was also quoted in the Star Trek reboot that came out in 2009 by J.J. Abrams. That line was quoted again a second time. But anyway, back to the film, I thought it was a pretty good end maybe not the greatest of all endings. In terms of an ending, the last movie of a movie franchise, but it was a decent sized ending. Not the greatest movie in the world or the best one in the series, but it had a good ending, and also it had the signature thing of all the cast members, or at least the main cast, and I thought it was quite good. And of course, this movie was dedicated to Gene Roddenberry, because that summer, I think like in August or something, they had Gene Roddenberry had died. So, and this movie came out, I think, in December of 1991, on the 25th anniversary year, or the end of the 25th anniversary year of the original Star Trek television series. And that whole year, they had a whole big celebration of Star Trek. Plus, here in New York, I think also in across the country as well, they had a nationwide poll. Of course, it was just before the internet age, so you didn't have a specific website to go to and vote for these episodes. You had to call like a 900 number, and of course the episodes that get the 10 highest vote totals, will be selected, and it will go from 10 to 1. Marathon actually taped this, because it was the first ever Star Trek episode marathon they had on. Of course, one of them, the first that came out 6, was of course the Call of Ultron episode. But the first one was like kind of like the silliest episode, and at least the funniest one, which was the Trouble with Tribbles. But the second episode was in fact the best one, and that was the Sailing on the Edge of Forever episode, the one with Joan Collins in it. Anyway, that was it. And then they had a 2-hour thing. Excuse me. A 2-hour special containing the history of Star Trek and the impact that Star Trek has on, like on NASA and everything else. But actually, of course, Gene Roddenberry died before the Star Trek 6 even came out. And the reason why they ended the movie series as 6 films for the original cast, because they wanted to get the Next Generation crew their own movie series. But that's what they decided to do. So they wanted to end the run movies from the original crew, because the original crew was getting older. A lot of them were in the 60s at that point, and so they were getting too old. I think one place Sky was was almost in the 70s already. But by that point, because I think it was the oldest one in the crew, with DeForest Kelly and Penn McCoy, I think those two were the two oldest ones to their age. So they want to retire them and sort of the Next Generation crew. So they want to get rid of them and pass the mantle, and pass the torch to the Next Generation series. So that's what I want to be discussing next, is those movies. So thank you. So that's my review for Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. Please like my video and watch all my other videos I've done, and subscribe to my channel. And thank you for watching.